Good morning again, everyone. So it's 8 o'clock here in the morning on Saturday the 17th of September, and things are certainly getting interesting as we see the fleet heading towards Lanzarote and Rubicon Marina film drop. And it's, the tracking rates are a little bit different for a few boats. We're closing the time frame for the positions down to 1 hour as the boats get close. Assists us to determine their ETA into the island. There's a few people asking, can we get an ETA of all the boats coming through and things like that, which is easy to work out when you're on the tracker. You just measure the distance from the boat to Lanzarote and then look at the average speed and divide it by that speed and over time, and you can come up with the estimate. But I'll do it on a few of the boats and you'll see what's happening. But it's certainly going to be a busy day from this afternoon, and as you can see straight away looking at the weather, that consistent northerly airflow is getting a little bit inconsistent for the boats at the back. It's starting to lighten off, and you'll see when we go through the weather, even the leaders, Simon and Tapio, who came in last night, are going to face a few challenges. So there's a few holes popping up everywhere which could change relative positions of the fleet and make it rather interesting. Anyway, it was fun to have them through last night. I'm sure if you're into it, you will have seen the lives that we did coming through. It was the middle of the night, but it was still great to see them, and they both looked very happy with progress and where they were, and they were certainly making good time. So that was kind of cool. Anyway, we'll so back end of the fleet. Nord's now only making 3.3, and that may, in fact, I think I'll go through the weather first just to give you an idea of what's going to happen here, and then we'll look at relative positions. So a bit of an overview. Here's Lanzarote and Rubicon Marina right there, and you can see the fleet spread through a reasonable distance, but this is the winds we're getting, going light up here, and even Benar Batesia is starting to run into a little bit of a light spot just here, and now we'll just do a bit of a jump through. So 24 hours from now, that's about it there, and you can see, bang, overall the winds are lightening off everywhere. The boats will still move relatively well if they get their light weather sails up, but certainly you may not be seeing the speeds, the sort of 7s and 7.5 knot average speeds that we've had to date, because overall it's starting to die down. And that's by 24 hours from now, that's tomorrow. That's on the 18th. If we jump forward another day, you can see now we've got serious holes starting to appear, and this is where it's going to get really interesting. And this is just 2 days. Now in 2 days, the boats are going to do about 200 and a bit miles, 100 miles to 130 miles a day, so it's about 250 miles. So how far is that, and where are the boats going to be? So I'll put a toggle here. Why is it not toggling? It's not toggling for some reason. Boom. Okay, there it is. So there's 250 miles. That's basically how far they could be if they're maintaining 100 to 120 miles a day. So I'll just put this up here. So if, for instance, Ian Herbert Jones was to maintain that sort of speed, and he won't because he's going to fall into some holes, he would just about be arriving at Lanzarote, Rubicon Marina, and you can see there's no wind there. So somewhere along that line he's going to stop. Okay, so if we now zip 250 miles down with the leaders, I'll put that there and come through 250 miles. You can see this gets very interesting because it puts them right on the edge of this no wind hole. Now if that happens and they can just extend a little bit, keep their averages up and just get in here, they may just hook up into this lot and keep going. And then I'll just keep going and going and going. Whereas the tail enders, even Ian Herbert Jones, he'd be here, but the others will be sitting in this hole here, and that's where you're going to see a big jump. If Simon and Tapio can get through, it'll be very exciting for them and very depressing for the others. So and then if I get rid of that, we come through another day. So that'll be on the 20th, about the same. The wind's starting to come back, but these guys have got a big run. The others will slow down a little bit. So I think you're going to see a little split in the fleet, but may not be as a huge one. They may get an extra 100 miles or something in front of everyone else. So the other one to look at is also to see how Damien's doing up the back. If we do another toggle here, boom, boom, we put it on. Remember, he was 550 miles out from the leaders previously. If I pull this down to Simon and Thingo, 550 miles still. So they're still maintaining, the leaders are still holding their position against Damien, so he's got the hunt through the back of the fleet, but he's making no gains at all to the leaders, and that's pretty much the same with Abolish and Pat. Yes, he's going through the tail enders, but he's not making gains on the leaders at the moment, and he's going to, obviously be affected by these light winds at the back as well. Okay, so that's a bit of enough on the prospect for weather going forward, and now we'll bring it back to real-time weather today. And Arnaud, as I said, 3.5 knots. Not a huge amount of speed, but Damien's got everything up. He's in a little bit more breeze. He's still making 6 knots, which is great. He's pulling it through. Mark is still doing reasonably well for his relative speed differential. He's making 4.8 knots, so that's okay. And Ian Herbert Jones still in the breeze, just holding it, but making 5 knots. Oh, I'll make this a bit bigger so you can see a bit better. I forget, sometimes it's easy for me to see this stuff when I'm leaning over the whole lot. Okay, so Ian Herbert Jones was back there. Elliot 5.6, so doing okay, holding his own, not getting dragged behind. And then Jeremy making 5.7. That was a 4 o'clock position. I just checked these times. Yeah, they're all 4 o'clock UTC positions at the back end of the fleet here. So 5.7 doing okay, right alongside Ayrton, 4.8. Ayrton slowly losing ground, or the others are passing through him. He's wanting to stay more comfortable maybe. Michael Goog doing 5.5. That's pretty cool. All in this sort of medium breeze. It's not hard, it's not soft, but they're able to keep pretty good speeds. 5.5 is an easy hull speed, so it's hard to push through higher than that sometimes in light to lightish breeze. Kirsten's still making 6, so still losing out to the leaders. Guy de Boer 5.5. He's still, this whole group is moving around a little bit, but Kirsten and Guy making up a little bit. Abolish 5.8, being crossed over by Pat, who's making 7. So this is kind of interesting. I know Abolish is racing hard, and Pat's still challenged with his knee. Okay, he's got an issue with his knee, if you've been following the tweets, and he is talking to MSOS, our 24-hour telemedicine guys, about his knee. It's not holding him up too much, but it's certainly not helping him at all. But clearly, same weather, same place, Pat is going quite considerably faster than Abolish, 5.8 versus 7. So that's once again telling me that the Rustlers are not necessarily the fastest boats in the fleet, and so it makes it quite interesting. Okay, so what's their ETAs, and when are we expected to see them today? We'll just come up to this one and keep it a bit clearer. So this is how you work out an ETA. So you toggle the tracker, get a distance. You can't go through the land. If I put it there, you're not going to sail through the island, and it's not so easy to do a corner. So I'll extend the toggle the same distance that it takes to turn the corner here. So that's why it's further than the actual the edge of the island, because they've got to turn the corner. You just want the distance. So it looks like Pat's going to be the next one in 3rd position, and he's got 53 nautical miles to go. Okay, now if I just take that off, 53 nautical miles, and you've got 7 knots. Okay, so 7 6s are 42, so 6 and 7 7s are 49, and that's about it. So he's about 7 hours away, okay, from arriving in Lanzarote. The local time here is 8 o'clock, so that's about 3 o'clock this afternoon. So you've got 4 hours to 12 o'clock, 5, 6, 7, 3 o'clock. So about 3 o'clock this afternoon, we're likely to see Pat rounding the mark here. And then what I'll usually do, having done that, I'll just do a simple course differential. How far is Abolish behind Pat on line for the course, and that's it about there, 5.8, maybe 6, and Abolish is doing about that. So about 1 hour later, we're likely to see Abolish. So I would say, assuming the weather and everything stays the same, and I'll get rid of that over the next, just get rid of that so you can see. It's a very consistent airflow there at the moment. So Pat's in at 3, Abolish is in at 4, provided the weather stays the same over the next 7 hours. So I'll just move this one here. It's gone soft, but that's further than the time. So you can see by 8:30 tonight, in 12 hours, you can clearly see how the colour changed. So it's going to go light. So they're going to slow down a little bit. So instead of 3 and 4, they may end up being 4 and 5 o'clock this afternoon. We don't know. But that was moving through 12 hours, and we're only talking 7. So I'll just pull this back a bit. I've got to get it on there. That's 10:30. That's too easy. So that's about it there. So, it looks as if it's consistent. We'll have to wait and see. It's actually raining here. It's quite interesting because it only rains here about 16 days a year. And we had rain last night, and there's some rain this morning. Not heavy rain, but it's patchy rain, but it is raining. So I would say they're probably going to maintain those speeds, and we'll certainly be ready to go out and say good day, sort of around 3 o'clock. And as we get closer, currently the positions here are set at still the 4 hourly positions. Later on this morning, that'll change to 1 hourly, and we get a closer track as they're coming in, so it's easy to see. We've got the Tapio and Simon are still, I believe, on 1 hourly, yeah. So they look a little bit further progressed than the others. The rest of the fleet, their positions are at 4, and Tapio's on at 7 o'clock this morning, so it's a bit further advanced. So you can't really use the toggle to see how far ahead they are. I suppose it's a few more miles. So anyway, making 6.6 knots at the moment, and Clara 6.8. So Simon's still stretching out a little bit in front and pushing hard. The boat, my observations on both of them last night was quite interesting. Simon is obviously really happy. This is his first Golden Globe race, and he's prepared the boat well, as you know. He's got great sails. He paid a lot of attention to make sure he's got performance sails. By that, what I'm meaning, some of the other boats have got maybe stronger sails, heavier sails, maybe not as much time and money spent on the design of the sails. Now, the design of the sails is not only the luff leach foot dimensions, but it can actually be the actual shape, the aerofoil shape of the sail. Now, you can have a standard sail that you just buy from the sailmaker, that it'll be a nice looking sail, boom, or you can have a sail designer, look at the displacement of the boat, look at the power of the boat, or the stability, the riding moment of the boat, and then look at the rig itself and the sheeting angles, and they can spend a lot of time on the computer actually designing the sails to fit the boat. Right, and they can say, okay, this is a displacement boat, so it needs to have, its power range is between one wind strength and the other, and the foil shape might bring the draft of it might move forward, or it could move back, depending on what the overlap of the next sail is, all these sorts of issues. Excuse me, and that's something that I know Simon worked on. So because he's also very good at understanding the performance of the sails. Now, I say this alongside Tapio, who's a lifelong ocean racer, okay, and he obviously knows all the same things, and performance is important for him, but also so is the circular economy, and money. And so he's actually using quite a few sails. I think that he used in the last Golden Globe race, and sure, they're strong and they look pretty good, but I've got to say they may not perform as well to the nth degree, the last 10%, as it would if they maybe were brand new. And so, that might be something you're seeing, because, what's the difference between the boats, the whole design and the concept? They're completely different. As you can see, Tapio's very low freeboard, really deep draft, super heavy rig, which he uses as a counterbalance for equilibrium in the Southern Ocean. He's not worried about losing a little bit of power in the light weather. But Simon's is a traditional Bisco 36, nothing super special about it. And on paper, I would like to suggest even that Tapio's boat might even be a little bit faster than Simon's boat. But Simon's just sailing it really well, aggressively, fit and healthy, new sails, relatively light. Now, I had some people criticising Simon's boat, he's too light, he shouldn't be in the GGR. But when I say that his boat is relatively light, the hull structure is exactly the same. These are incredibly strong boats, incredibly strong hull. It's just that he hasn't wasted any weight when he's done the refit. He hasn't overcomplicated the deck layout. He still goes to the mast to reef. I had some people complaining that it was dangerous to go to the reef at the mast, and yes, it is more comfortable if you're reefing in the cockpit, but there's nothing wrong at all by clipping on and going forward to do all your work at the mast, and it actually saves weight because you don't have the extra lines even going back to the cockpit, and you don't have the extra winches in the cockpit and all those sorts of things. And you may remember Simon's even got the standard small cockpit winches, whereas some boats might have, some guys might have put bigger winches on for the Southern Ocean, things like that. So I have to say Simon's a sailor's sailor, right? He's a racing sailor, and I really think it's showing. And Tapio's right on his hammer. So don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Tapio's going slow for at all. I'm just saying it's very interesting watching these two have a bit of fun and really give it everything they've got. So some interesting things happening. Let's keep our fingers crossed, or certainly pay attention to what's going to happen with these lighter patches of wind and see who gets through. If these guys can get through and the forecast changes and the others stop behind, you're going to see something very interesting, and not dissimilar to what happened to Jean-Luc. But to do it this early would be quite interesting. Okay, that's about it. So thanks, and we'll see you